do you want me to start, or do you want to say something
Yeah.
and then kind of hand it over? Sure, over to you then.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to host social entrepreneurship and disruptive innovation roundtable. In the times that we are living, I believe that social entrepreneurship is the best way forward, and we are proud to host a session with Dr. Smriti Pawa, with Dr. Sona Vikas, and Mr. Prashant Lal to set up the foot forward and to encourage, inspire, and guide the people, the youngsters, everyone who is watching this on social entrepreneurship, and what are the next steps? How do we really do it? What is the difference between entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship? And how can we benefit the world, benefit India, and take forward a chart in a progressive direction? So we have Dr. Smriti Pawa, who's also training with us on social entrepreneurship and disruptive innovation. We have Mr. Prashant Lal, who is a founder of a very reputed NGO. And we have Dr. Sona Vikas, who's also associate professor with IILM University. So over to you, Dr. Pawa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Harsha. Thank you so much. And a very good evening to all of you who are with us now. And I know we are experiencing some technical difficulties, and hopefully more of you will see when the recording is uploaded. But yes, entrepreneurship has always been a positive landscape to be in, and social entrepreneurship now, like Harsha said, more than ever is called for. I'm Dr. Smriti Pawa, and for the last 20 years, as I worked across within the social impact landscape, but across sectors and systems, CSOs, NGOs, for-profits, corporates, CSRs, schools, and other kind of institutionalized setups, and my experience with various startups, ed tech, socio tech, so to say, health tech, some exemplary work that is on in the social entrepreneurship genre. And when I was reflecting upon all that while writing my book that just came out, this one, I really kind of thought that there was this thread that was running across whenever these innovations were being shaped up. The book would have like case studies on, in a literacy mission, how a health vertical was set up to build up cost-effective models for increasing the reach and increasing the social impact. So in this thread that was running, and what I called, while I was writing the book, is called MOC. I thought, let's give it a name. It was an ambiguous kind of thought process, and MOC stands for Missed Opportunities Cognizant Mindset. Now, in my experience last 20 years, while I was, applying my PhD in nutrition and degrees in education and management across these systems and projects, I felt that MOC mindset, was one critical kind of sort of lens that helped create innovations, that helped create verticals, and it was like an entrepreneurial mindset. When I was invited to take up this course on social entrepreneurship, there is a online course coming up later that I'm sure the organizers will announce by the end. I thought that there was a brilliant opportunity to create this reflective space. And while we discussing the social entrepreneurship nuances, how the landscape is changing, especially now, there was a brilliant opportunity to get as many views and perspectives from various stakeholders as possible. Well, the title of the book, as you can see, is Of Missed Opportunities, One Too Many. And I'm so happy that while shaping this course, the approach that I have taken, looking at all this through MOC mindset, I've been able to set up these places where there is not even a single missed opportunity to plug in as many voices and sounds and experiences as possible. Today, I'm considering this like an opening as a precursor to the larger course that is coming later. And I think 2 months ago, when we did like a smaller version of this class, it was a 2-hour session. I remember calling myself, which I've already considered, and whenever I get to introduce, I'm asked to introduce myself, I say that I like to think of myself as a catalyst. So I really hope that today's discussion, starting today, and it kind of, when it brews to the full-fledged course that is coming soon, I am able to play the role of a catalyst. Social entrepreneurship, not it is the landscape to be in, but how it is embedding, how the corporate thinking is kind of changing, how we are kind of moving from corporate social responsibility to corporate social innovation, so to say, right? So within the corporates, outside the corporates, and within the larger social impact arena, I think social entrepreneurship is to be talked about everywhere, and there are various stakeholders. And the reason being, today, we have so honored I am to get these two leaders in front, to share their thoughts with us, Dr. Sona and Mr. Prashant. And they are, I know, we will be opening, I'll be throwing some questions to them. And the first of these questions to both of them, I'm telling you, would be, how do you see social entrepreneurship? How do you think, who should look at social entrepreneurship, who should be bothered about social entrepreneurship? But before that, I do want to I would like people who are listening to this to know where you come from, because I know that you have various experience from corporate, from students, from women entrepreneurs, and the brilliant work that you do between the two of you. So if you could introduce yourself, saying that where you're coming from, where all you have been, and hence the all those lenses, how do you see social entrepreneurship? So I'm opening up, and can I invite Sona first to talk? Prashant, is that okay with you? Yes, please, Sona.
Thank you, Dr. Smriti. Thanks a lot, and I'm grateful to IICSR for inviting me here today. I've had the opportunity of working with students themselves on social entrepreneurial, opportunities and projects way back in 2007, when I just entered into the, education sector and a career in education after a corporate stint. So for me, I believe that students can be a fantastic, agent for bringing about the change that we are looking in. I 7.5 years before I shifted to academics in 2007. And since then, the association with students on various community outreach projects and a lot of initiatives for the development of society have been done. I have also had a chance wherein they worked with the slums in Delhi. There is this location called Wazirpur Industrial Area, where it is boasting of one of the largest steel industrial units of the country. And to get, the work done in the slums there was such a Herculean task that it gave me all the more encouragement that it is not easy. So, I should definitely pursue it even more. So we were happy to break through, do the ice breaking with the people there and get the students to be associated. So I certainly believe that social entrepreneurship as a concept, as a, as a process is very much required in the country. And I'm happy that in some way or the other, I have been part of this during my entire, not only the experience of working right now with the students at ILM, but also even earlier during my tenure in education.
Thank you. Thank you, Sona. And Prashant, before I come to you, Sona, you mentioned about urban slums in Delhi, was it?
That's right.
And my PhD locale was Delhi slums, where I kind of practically spent 8 years doing that I started with Indian Council of Medical Research, and in fact, while I was writing all that in the book, uh, and there is a case study there, but what I wanted to kind of point out was, when I went there as a lone researcher, my objective was vitamin A deficiency, micronutrients, and more scientific things of that nature. But there was this huge opportunity of education, that, I mean, there were 110 problems there, but I thought, at least one, can I address that? After all, I'm doing PhD, I can help class 4, class 5 students, hopefully. In my mind, I think, although I had not shaped the MOC mindset then, but there was an opportunity to kind of address the social impact from one SDG box to another SDG box. Education and health are indifferent. But I think that kind of thinking, and I do share your this thing, that with students is a very good opportunity to get them thinking about the nature of the beast and then how to amalgamate. So with that, coming to you, Prashant, uh, I know you have been a corporate and an outside corporate person, and now not just you, but you are nurturing so many women entrepreneurs at grassroots level. So if you could, in your words, introduce where you have been and how you really think is social entrepreneurship, why should we be talking about it, and who should be talking about it? So over to you, Prashant.
Thank you, Smriti ji. Thank you. Really appreciate, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this discussions. And it's really interesting when anybody talk about entrepreneurship, because what I feel, it's all about making money. Because if you are actually making money out of anything, which means you are sustainable, and business is all about sustainability. And when we talk about social entrepreneurship, it's about making money out of society and giving back to the society. Means your business is inspired by something problem which is faced by the society. So I think this is the best tool that we should do. And I'll just give a little background. I spent 17 years in corporate life, and while I was working with corporate, I formed NGO in 2013, and I continued working till 2017. So I was funding this program, the NGO which I formed. But when I quit, I realized that if I don't have money, I can't run it. Means you actually need a lot of money. And when we decided to expand, and also you need to think that you also need to earn money to run your own family as well, right? So that is where I realized that I need to first be sustainable. So I did something else to run my own family expenses, and then I can run the NGO, because I can't be relying on NGO. I can't earn a lot of money out of the NGO. That's what I feel. So now coming to your question, the social entrepreneurship, why we have taken this as a subject, because what we feel that if you want to change anything in the society, you should give money to the people, right? And why we have taken women as part of our program, because in the poor family, in the people who are economically background, coming from that particular background, if women get money in their hand, they will take care of the education of the kids, healthcare, good living, quality of life will improve. So that's what I personally believe. If the money should be earned by women, and of course their the respect in the society will improve, because people do not consider women as part of the family decision making process as well. So we have actually involved women, and we have learned in last 2 years, especially when we have helped 60 women to start their business, and we saw the breakthrough changes in their life. The women who were just a housewife, not doing anything, right now they are actually earning 23,000 rupees a month. Is more than what their husbands is earning right now. and these women are actually taking care of the family and all those things. So this is the best tool to develop our country, I would say. So we, even the government also focuses a lot, even MSME ministries, government, entrepreneurs. It's not just entrepreneur is very, very fancy word, I would say, where you actually talk about big business. I always talk about a small things. Even if you are having a small fast food centers, if even you are having a tea stall, you are actually earning money and you are Atmanirbhar, right? That's what is the social entrepreneurship. And if your business is helping other people in the society, that's the social entrepreneur, I would say. So you have to be inspired by the cause which is coming out of the society. You are earning money and you are giving back to the society out of that. That's what I feel is the definition of the social entrepreneurship.
Sure. Thank you, Prashant. I know as such definition, social entrepreneurship, we do not have kind of a definition of sort, not that it matters, but I know it is an evolving concept. From what you said, two things. You said yes, Atmanirbhar, that is, I mean, like I said, boon se sagar bharta hai. So so you know what, I'll give you a little insight. When this course, this opportunity was presented to me that why don't you lead this course. So the name that I kept, and I think in one of the modules when we go, it is called demystifying social entrepreneurship, because with like you, I also felt that it is too big a term and sometimes too feared a term, that kind of hinders people to actually understand what is entrepreneurship, what is an entrepreneurial mindset, right? It is not only embedded in big businesses, but it can be a part of your life. Now, from what you said, Prashant, two things. You said it is about making money. I was just reading this Schwab Foundation's one of the write-ups, and it was said, two things were said. One of them was exactly what you said, that you have to believe in the cause. So basically just find what that problem is, and then you find kind of ways to work around. But second thing that was said was, in terms of viewing entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, what needs to be kept in mind is that your rate of returns or your break evens, it is not going to follow the same trajectory, or it is not going to be the kind of the business as usual, because if it had been, other business would have already come in, right, and done that. So in your experience, right, how would you kind of relate or react to that? If somebody, suppose, I do hope that with our talk today, somebody who's listening to you says, oh, let me set up a company or this thing for these 10 women who are around me, and let's see how I can skill and how I can kind of design a model for them. So what should be the business plan? Like, if you share glimpses, when you said, by I need to be self-sufficient first, something I have to sustain myself, right, and then I can kind of set up a business. So if you could just reflect a little bit on this business side of the social business, so to say.
Right. So I think you've actually asked very, very valid questions, because when it comes out of business and you are actually producing a product or a service, and the service is being offered to a customer, and customer has to pay for that, right? When the customer is paying, let's say he or she do not know about who has actually manufactured, who has supplied this product, then they will look for a value for money, right? It does not matter that it is coming from a social enterprise or it's coming from a business, normal business company, but it has to have a value for money. It has to be a qualitative product, right? The most important thing, when the customer is paying, take the example of Patanjali, right? Patanjali was having a very, very huge emotional attachment with so many people that Patanjali has grown significantly. But in last couple of months, I would say, or I would say couple of years, I've actually seen that they have reached to peak and they are not growing that fast pace because they have not improved the quality of product.
Sure.
So social enterprise, so Patanjali is a big example of social enterprise, giving back to the society. Similarly, what I feel, I think if your quality, if your product are at par, you definitely can have a good, good margins, good, I would say price of the product. There's nothing wrong in that, or what I feel. Because another thing, what I feel, when you actually, we have actually tested this to the people. Like, this is a particular carry bag made by women from a poor background, and we are selling in 150 rupees. If you buy the same product from Amazon, you have to pay 350 rupees. Please buy. And we have not seen a very significant response. But when we started showing that this is the bag which is helping, is actually your need, we sold 9,000 bags in just 1 year. We have removed that emotional attachment, unless and until somebody asks. So that way, I think, I feel that you should bring the people, but as a business person, you should always have in mind that your business has to give back to the society.
Sure.
I mean, the people should get the benefit.
Sure.
It is not that you only get the benefit.
Sure.
So when we are making this program, we are giving maximum profit to the people who are working for us. Like the 150 bag that we are selling, the raw material and everything is costing us 80 rupees. But out of 150, 80 is a raw material. Women is getting almost 35 rupees a bag.
Sure.
So you see, we have kept very, very less margin. Amazon is taking almost double of these things. So we definitely have to look at those things, but consider that your quality product has to be qualitative. That's what is our
No,
objective.
thank you, Prashant. I think let me just bring in this one dimension here, that earlier, I think it all started when young and restless. I hate to I hate those discussions where entrepreneurs and young is kind of used synonymously. Maybe I am not that young anymore, so that is why so. But it basically, what the point that I wanted to bring to this discourse was, this entrepreneurial kind of mindset to change things. I think if you could track it, it started with when things were not, when there was a problem, or when things were not proper, and there was a yearning for a solution. I think the earlier manifestation to now also was an NGO, a charity, that kind of a setup. And then there was these businesses that were set up. But I think now we are seeing a discourse that is coming in the middle, where yes, you do have a business lens, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that you're trying to address a social problem. And obviously it will not follow the same curve which a typical business would have followed. There is a reason why a typical business has not entered to solve this social problem. And I think this discourse is relevant for the investor community, for the impact community, and for the entrepreneurs themselves who are kind of getting into this space. So that was one. I'll come back to you, Prashant, but let me just get this lens towards how do you, if I look at the lens of social entrepreneurship as a thinking mindset, or as having an attitude towards that, and how it can be embedded in the education system. When we started the discussion, I went to Sona, and she very clearly said that yes, students is a good point to start. So I would want to kind of come to you, Sona, and ask you, have you seen what kind of courses, or what in your experience, how this social entrepreneurship, so to say, spirit, or entrepreneurial spirit, and then molding it to the social impact landscape has been or can be caused? And a confession here, when I was asked to plan this course, I really thought, like the wave which is coming now, I think it is 10 hours, 2 hours every day or something like that. I was like, in 10 hours, you can't really learn how to set up a business. And that was my view when I was first selected for this leadership fellowship by MX. And but there I realized that it is not that you will make a product out of that 3 days or 4 days or whatever, or 10 hours, but it gives you that reflective space which you do not get which you do not get in your normal life, right? So these small reflective spaces, and that is how it all made sense to me. So Sona, for students, they have a space in the education system, right? Their main this thing, they are kept in an institutionalized kind of, in an organized setting. So would you like to reflect upon how they can be tuned towards this social entrepreneurial thinking in colleges? Yes, I think it is relevant in schools also, but do you want to reflect on that, Sona?
See, I feel that if you look at the student community, social entrepreneurship is very, very relevant today. And you know what has happened over a period of last few years is there is a very strong wave of the entrepreneurial climate in our country, which we can experience. Maybe due to the impetus given by our honorable Prime Minister. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of students today are inclined to work on their own for themselves rather than working for others, under others, so to say. So this has led to a significant rise in a lot of startups and ventures by students, between the age group of maybe 16 to 20.
Hmm.
Now, on the other side, so these are entrepreneurial ventures. But I can also see that students are very sensitized and they are very aware of the issues which are surrounding them.
So,
And with the growing digital environment where, social media reports everything and anything, the awareness of the issues are very, very prominently discussed. Their awareness is also increased phenomenally. So the youngsters nowhere are, studying in a cocoon where they don't know what's happening
sure,
outside.
sure.
Also, what has happened is the financial support has increased tremendously to a very friendly ecosystem by the current government, and very supportive policies, funds, grants. Even venture capitalists are encouraging students to come forward, present their ideas. So, this has created a huge wave for students to get into the entrepreneurial wave. Also, what is happening, I feel, is that there are a lot of success stories which are being posted on social media today, whether it is in LinkedIn or Instagram. Students are there and they can read them, they can get inspired by them. So they are finding it themselves as an attractive proposition to, become local heroes by doing good.
Sure.
So what I feel is that we have started on the right track and there is definitely scope for more. So the mindset is very much there.
Hmm.
In fact, if I look at the engineering colleges, and in fact, every college today has a entrepreneurship cell, which is encouraging students to, come up with innovative ideas. They are, holding the colleges, universities, they're holding social innovation competitions, business plan competition, student mentoring by the, entrepreneurs, and they are all being encouraged to come up with social ventures.
Hmm.
So as a result, what is happening is everywhere ideas contributing to society, and many organizations, are organizing workshops, conferences to facilitate this entire thing. So I feel that this is the right time wherein, it is absolutely the right opportunity for anyone who wants to rope in the students to contribute. There is a lot of inclination from their side. They are also getting support from their institutions. So, it's a very positive development that has happened over the last few years. This is
Sure.
what I have seen by the interaction and how institutions are working towards the same.
Sure. Thank you, Sona. I think just to add another experience here, your point on every college encouraging. When I was curating the course and this particular social entrepreneurship, the entire segment, um, um, I wanted to kind of bring as many voices. A, if people can come like you have come to talk, but B, having those recordings with interviewing various and some that is a larger kind of a 30-40 minutes kind of a interview through the journey. And in one, and those are all included as case studies in the course. But one entrepreneur from Bihar, she very categorically said, college was the place where, you know, we had this and we started. I mean, in fact, she said school. And then she said, then in the college, I made sure that I get into this college and I get into this course and I do it properly. And then she got into an incubator as well to kind of, you know, incubate her vision. So I think that is one. The second thing that I wanted to kind of, that I picked up from what you said was actually two things. One, people are aware, and I think today, the date of today, with the pandemic that has hit us and all the allied things that it has kind of which were already there, be it the health system, be it the migration problem, be it the infrastructure, it has kind of put a spotlight on all that. So I think now more than ever is the time when people are aware of the social causes that are available, or that exist between us. So nobody is living in a bubble, really. And why this awareness is there is due to the digital access, and the world is digital now. I know there is a lot of digital divide. We were talking about the potential for digitization and basically opening up this knowledge and this access. And I think we are now faced with a situation where we are kind of being pushed wherever it is not available to make it available, to make sure that this digital divide closes, and soon and fast. So I think that opportunity to reach out to knowledge, to seek knowledge, to access is now at the magnitude it is now more than ever. So I think these are two things which are ripe, which create a ripe environment for people to kind of experience various workshops or what is that is going on. So I think what I sum up from you and would like to get a acknowledgement from you is that yes, such experiences and such talks and such, maybe a workshop, maybe a session, you don't know who it influences, and what idea you get, or you know what you pick from that are although everybody is doing it, there are hundreds that are happening, but I think the more the better. So would you agree, Sona, on that?
Absolutely. You know, in fact, also what has happened is the curriculum today, both in, you know, schools, colleges, universities, everywhere, they are increasing, you know, a lot of component on increasing awareness towards the social problems, encouraging students to, you know, come up with innovative ideas. And in fact, you know, I was very surprised that some curriculum also has entrepreneurship as a mandatory subject within school.
Great.
It was not just the colleges and all, but now in school also it's become compulsory. And universities, schools, colleges, they're all encouraging students to come up, because they feel that these youngsters have, you know, the spark in them. They are very nascent in their experience, so they will come up with very innovative ideas, and it could actually solve some of the biggest issues and problems. And we also hear that, you know, across the world, not just in India, that many of the social enterprises today are being run by students who started very early from school itself, and they are, you know, wanting to take it upon themselves to become the change agents. So I think there is a lot of scope there, and the more exposure we give to the students, the more you know, formal education we can bring about, it will bring a drastic change in the way we are facing situations today. And I'm sure that we can handle and tackle some of the problems given the solutions given by some of them. I'll give you a small example. Last year, we had at ILM conducted a social innovation competition for school students. There was this class 11 student who had come up with a very innovative shoe. It was a shoe very innovative, that this is for the women, that it will make them, you know, uh, be prepared as a security measure if they're venturing out in the dark.
Wow.
I mean, For me, it was like an eye opener that a school student, he's hardly 15, 16 years old, and look at the way they are addressing that, the way they're coming up with the solution. So there are examples like this. There are multiple examples, but this one example just stuck in the head, and I was literally very impressed. And when I spoke to this child that where do you get these ideas from, so he said that I read the a lot of news. I watch a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of TEDx talks and all. So, somewhere, as you said, somebody is getting influenced. So, the more such frequent, exposure and experiences we give to the students, it will create a fantastic
Sure,
impact.
sure. And I think what is required is, it is my experience that I've seen so many others. It is and it is, there is a pure science to it, which is I mean, I worked my PhD and my other research projects were in behavior change communication, and there's a science to it. First, when you expose, there are stages in how people adapt or adopt a behavior. Is they get exposed and they get used to it, and then there is a science to it. So I think curating such experiences, and repeatedly so that it is, okay, you were exposed, but then there is a nudge, just to think that, what is the reflective space you are in, and what can you, if you can apply it. So thank you, and I'm so happy that today we have Prashant with us, who has taken this journey of setting up his own entity, but not just for his own. He's setting up entities and entrepreneur ventures for the women. And in the case studies for the course, I already interviewed, which will become a recording and get embedded, a young, this girl who I just mentioned, who started from school, and then she went to college, and then how she nurtured, and so she didn't go to the whole, the corporate life and everything, and then came to social entrepreneur. So she's the young social entrepreneur. With that, and we have, I think, 20 minutes left to the session. I am looking at the questions if they're pouring in. I request IICSR, whoever is looking at the live feed, if there are any questions, they don't have to wait for the end of the session, and they can just feed it here. I'm not looking at the live this thing. If there are questions, they can be fed in here so that I can take them up. But let me come back to you, Prashant. Now, so Sona, she talked about, how the need, the ecosystem is changing in terms of the need, and in terms of the kind of problems and the awareness around problems, that is more and more now, and hence naturally there would be people who would want to look for solutions. I want to come to you to understand, in the same ecosystem, how the giving ecosystem is changing. And I tell you where I'm coming from. See, this Forbes this a report came out, and I read a Forbes write-up around it, and this is, you would know, that the Deloitte Human Capital Trends in 2018 that came out, right? And it said 65% of the companies that they surveyed are basically, the top three goals are the inclusive growth, and it is basically, they're no longer talking about, growth market or being the category leader. Similarly, citizenship and social impact were rated critical important by almost 3/4, 77%, more than 3/4 of the respondents. And and the need to create 21st century careers. So why I want to come to you, and what I want to come to you for, is how you have experienced the CSR, which the CSR ecosystem, in terms of supporting social entrepreneurial ventures, social entrepreneur, social entrepreneurs in their local vicinity. How has that changed? Because sustainability and SDGs, and basically the business and the social objectives, are also kind of coming to the middle now. And like we first talked about the NGOs and the business, but the business, and so basically from the shareholder and the stakeholder approach, we are moving more towards the stakeholder approach, and just not shareholder. So you have been in the corporate, then you came out, then you set up your entity. So would you have some reflections on that? How fertile is the ecosystem, the investment ecosystem, if I may call it?
Yeah, definitely. So, see, the environment that Dr. Sona has already mentioned, this is very, very, supportive for the startups, for any, social enterprise also. And I was lucky that when I quit corporate, I got a 6-month assignment to work with MNIT College in Jaipur. I actually set up the incubation center. I was actually mentoring 23 companies in Jaipur. And I should, just mention, because Dr. Sona mentioned about the shoes. There's one of the boy from a school in Nirja Modi, a school in Jaipur. He was studying in 9th class at that time. And he has come up with an idea that he is actually developing a generator, power generator, that would not need any solar, no petrol, no fuel is required. Can you believe that? So this was the innovation that he was working. And actually I invited 3 power experts, energy experts from Jaipur, different colleges and universities, and they all assessed his idea, and finally they approved that this idea has a potential to be part of the startup organizations. And he was just in 9th class. So right now the students has so much of creativity. Students are full of energy. They, in fact, when we were in college or we were passing out college, we were just looking for kaise bhi karke, whatever job I get, I'll just join. But right now students are not thinking about job. They are thinking about giving, jobs to the people actually. So they are trying to solve the problem to those people. So there are 2 aspects, I would say. One is CSR and the second one is the angel investors. So angel investors are definitely business community. They are looking for more money, and they are definitely looking for a good ideas. And if you have a really good idea, you will get invest funding. Definitely you get it. And I know a lot of, startups whom I've been supporting. They've got a good funding. They started from nothing, and now they are actually in 50 crores plus organizations. They have grown significantly. From coming to the CSR point of view, the CSR for me personally is very, very supportive. I don't know, it may not be that supportive for all other NGOs, because CSR do not actually believe in, means they do not, the amount do not qualify if you invest in any startup. It does not qualify for CSR as per the CSR Act. But if you are helping a social cause and then it is being part of the enterprise, then this can be part of this. So when we were actually able to show the result, then so first year only the MetLife company supported us. Now, if you see, I have the pipeline of the ENBI, we have Coal Technology, we have Genpact, we have AU Bank, we have a line of companies who are looking for this particular model, because this particular model is giving livelihood to the people in the villages, as well as giving the, as well as supporting their social cause, both the things. So in that sense, this is, the corporates are very supportive. But coming to the startups, I think government has a very there's so many schemes where the startup can get the advantage. In fact, I remember we were help MNIT college to draft a policy where any student of MNIT college start his own business, and in the last year they get into a campus interviews, right? So we have started a policy called deferred campus interviews. So deferred means if you being part of the startup and if you are successful, you do not need to be part of the campus because you become a organizations. But let's say if you are not successful, after 2 years also you can come back and sit in the final interview, campus interviews, so that you get the placement. So the universities, colleges are giving very, very nice supportive schemes. I know so many schemes, though we have a little time, but we know so many organizations are very, very supportive to the startups, and I keep visiting a lot of universities and colleges for that purpose.
Great, great. So Prashant and everybody else. So we have 10 minutes into till we strike 5 p.m., which is where the discussion was supposed to be slated. I wanted to touch upon, we've talked about students, we've talked about they should know, we've talked about how investors should understand the nature of the beast, and the investing community kind of tailors the the mentoring to the social created. In terms of CSR, and I see Dr. Upadhyay there, if you can listen to me. And I do want to, and sir, please feel free to jump in. But I wanted to, get the discourse towards, should CSR, people who are in the holding positions in CSR or involved in the CSR management, implementation, so to say, do they need to kind of understand social entrepreneurship and how it is kind of emerging to make to move the needle in terms of the social impact landscape? Like you said, like Prashant said, they might not be, the investment might not be considered as this thing, but like I said, the CSR, the corporate social responsibility, is evolving into corporate social innovations and corporate social business models, so to say, right? So in that sense, the way CSR has shaped up in the planning the CSR portfolios, or implementing or involved inside the corporates, do if they are oriented, should they be oriented, are they being oriented, and should they really know? I mean, I feel they should, because I do think that they are a big stakeholder in shaping the social impact landscape and the impact that is made there, because it's a huge force, and India has a unique setup where we have a law. So how the CSR community is looking to get their, kind of workforce oriented towards social entrepreneurship, and basically understanding how the opportunities are rising and how the concepts are changing. So I know, Prashant, you have kind of commented on that. Dr. Upadhyay, would you want to? Yes, please.
Uh, Dr. Smriti, you have put it very beautifully. See, the whole ecosystem is changing now. Even in agriculture, see, at present, agriculture has about 60% population in rural area in the agriculture, which it cannot sustain now. So the only outlet left for agriculture is it should go into type of you have the various enterprises, you go for livelihood. Now with this 4 crore which has gone to villages, villages cannot sustain them. So CSR, government, they need a type of system where entrepreneurship should be encouraged. Otherwise also, if you see in the urban area also, jobs are not there now. If there only were 4 crore jobs, I don't think the jobs will be back by 1 crore or more than that.
Sure.
So you need a different ecosystem, a different type of thinking. That's why government has announced a lot of things. But problem with these schemes is they are loan oriented. At this point of time, people don't want to take risk of taking a loan. Whereas things should have been, if you want to start your own enterprise, government will support you with money, with technology. That's not happening. So I think the whole ecosystem needs a change, and the type of training you are giving, we need lot of these trainings around social entrepreneurship.
Sure.
It's a buzzword for the future. Jobs won't be there. Government will not continue with Narega also even for a very long time. And sizable population, I think earlier it was 22% people were below the poverty line. That means the poverty index. Now almost 50 will be there, 50%. So the type of numbers we have, I think there's no solution except social entrepreneurship. Government will have to go for it, and CSRs must do for it. A lot of them are doing it.
Sure.
Still, you need a lot of advocacy.
Sure. No, so I think one thing is, it's like a fact, and nobody can shy away, that the nature of the social problems that we had, I think how COVID has hit us and how the new norm would be, I think the problem in each of those SDG boxes is going to go higher. There'll be new problems. The old problems would have worsened. I come from nutrition, so I keep listening and keep talking about how the undernutrition, the malnutrition, and not just undernutrition, even the NCDs, the diabetes and overnutrition, and we've already seen how they've played out in COVID. They've become like a complication force here, right? So how those agendas, those problems which were already there will get even worse. The undernutrition will get even worse. So I think that is, everybody is kind of agreeing to it, can't afford not to agree to it, that we need to move the needle and faster now, because we might have been kind of pushed back because of the pandemic that has happened. What I, in my experience, what I've kind of come to believe is that, and Dr. Upadhyay, you can validate, and Prashant, you can validate, having dealt directly with the CSR's community, is, it is about, like what I started was, when we talk about entrepreneurship, the synonymous is young, the synonymous is startups, and the synonymous is that, but it's not really so. It doesn't have to be so. So similarly, the CSR, how it was dealt earlier, a few years ago, when it kind of shaped up, and how it needs to look at the problem and approach the problem, becoming from CSRs to CSR business models. Like Prashant said, fine, if you can't go directly, I know the policy can change and whatever advocacy would require, but is there a way that I approach this so that it becomes like it evolves into an innovation from a responsibility? I think for that, the arms and hands and legs and heads who work, and by head I mean the head, the brains which are involved in CSRs, I think they also would need to look at the social entrepreneurship and just not kind of equate it to startup, but equate the spirit and the approach that can be used while making CSR investments, so as to make to move the needle in an effective way and faster. So do you think you agree that, I mean, apart from, I mean, this some orientation, because if I was a person who was into a CSR position when the law came, and how the ecosystem has changed, how the approaches have changed, how I can accentuate the funds and how can make more cost-effective models to approach, have dynamically changed because of all these opportunities. But nobody told me, and nobody is kind of inviting me to courses on social entrepreneurship, because I am not running a startup. But I feel that orientation is required. Dr. Upadhyay, do you agree that these folks should look at workshops, or should look at courses, or are there attempts being made to kind of bring them into the fold on the social entrepreneurial mindset?
I fully agree with you, Dr. Smriti. But problem is somebody has to be an advocate at this point of time. Some companies like Hindustan Liver Limited, they have this Shakti program where they train these rural women in the shop and all. And then it's going on very well for them. A simple reason to me, because it's in line of their business.
Correct.
Company is increasing its business. Women are also being benefited. Same thing is done by ITC also when they make each of us. My personal view is you have to teach them that it's in the interest of the business to go for it.
Yes. And thank you for bringing that up, and I'll finish our discourse and just let the floor open for any last thoughts. But while I was curating the course and preparing and kind of organizing for the online sessions that are coming up ahead, there is a very interesting reading which says The New Business of Doing Business, which basically talks about it has to be a business, and the social impact has to be integrated into the business too, and that is the new business. You can't go old ways, because it is basically becoming social innovation rather than social responsibility in the corporates. So thank you for bringing that point in. And with that, I open the floor for any comments, any questions. If there are none, then last thoughts from the speakers, and thereafter any announcements by IICSR. Please announce the course and the dates and what is being planned. I've talked so much about that. I'm so excited for that. So over to you, Harsha.
It's been a pleasure to have you, and since I was facing technical difficulties, I'm using my camera, if you notice, to go Facebook Live. So I've been finding different ways to do that. My my thought and my question is, how can uh, see, gender equality is also one of our big challenges. So why can't the corporates embed the social entrepreneurs which are women led in their value chain? And in order to do so, what are the various criterias that any corporates would look at to associate with a social venture? Considering even getting seed capital for any social venture is a big task, how do you see that companies could go and approach multinationals to even get some kind of funding? You see?
Sure. So, Prashant, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so there are organizations who are actually supporting this. Facebook is a very good example. They have a project called Pragati, and they actually support women who are leading any social enterprise, and it has to be 0 to 3 years of age. Then Nudge Foundation is another organization who's been supporting different such organizations. Dasra is another organization. There are a lot of seed funding available for the people who want to do this kind of things as part of CSR. Yes, you have to actually find these, because right now the challenge with CSR that every company is running their own initiatives,
Yes.
and you are a small organization. You do not know, you do not have your outreach to these corporate, and it is very difficult to reach out to the person or decision makers. So that's the biggest challenge. I think the government should solve that problem. But there are a lot of organizations. If you find, you definitely can get a good support from the corporate.
Prashant, would you help us with how to reach Nudge Foundation or other foundations?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So anything you need for CSR, support for NGO, for anything, definitely whatever knowledge I have, I can always, happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you. On this note, I would also like to announce that Dr. Pava, under Dr. Pava's leadership, we are offering a social entrepreneurship and disruptive innovation course from the 12th of October to the 16th of October. And we are really looking forward for a lot of people to join in, considering the situations that the country is, and that the conventional businesses is not the only way to run the courses or to run the future of any economy, not only India's economy, in order to ensure that it is more sustainable. So you can get in touch with us on info@icsr.com. I would like to thank Prashant, Dr. Smriti, Dr. Sona for conducting such a thoughtful session on such a subject which is the need of the hour. And I would request for the final messages from the guest and Dr. Pava, please.
Sure. So I think when I said yes to leading the course, and when I picked social entrepreneurship course, I had the MOC cap in my head. I said, let this be, course is one thing, but let me get as many voices, and let me shape this up in such a way that we have this diverse sharing of thoughts. And I'm so happy that this first precursor of the course in my mind was successful in sharing that. And so I'm really looking forward to having these more of such chat sessions. Harsha, do we have another session on Saturday? Should I announce that, or we are still working on that?
We're working
with
on that.
Dr. Hop? We are working on that. All right. So hopefully we'll have more of as a precursor to the course. And with that, I leave the floor to Dr. Sona and Prashant to say the last word, so that we can sign off. And Dr. Upadhyay, thank you so much for always getting this value add to the forum. So over to you, Prashant, and then Sona later. Okay, let's do some gender balance here also, right?
Thank you, Dr. Smriti. So My, takeaway from this particular workshop, this is really, really, needed, because CSR is, it just happened in 2014, and the corporates are not educated. So it is our duty to actually educate the people in the corporate as well, that how they should run their CSR initiatives. I work with, top brands in India, and I personally believe that they are actually doing good job, but there is a lot of scope for improvement. So I think, as part of the IICSR, we can produce good minds who can be part of the future CSR initiatives and lead the development sectors.
Sure. And maybe influence the current minds who are in the CSR, involved in the
Absolutely.
CSR, So I would not
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would not just want to look at the future. I would want to look
True.
right
True.
now.
True.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Prashanta. Sona?
I would like to, conclude here saying that, see, CSR or social entrepreneurship, if you see, they both have a shared goal. And this shared goal is, could be of social value creation. So when you know that it can, and they can leverage a way, they can work together to leverage with each other so that their objective of CSR also gets fulfilled. The social enterprise also gets, the support that they're looking for. So it is just about creating that synergy. But I'm sure that we can work out, because there are so many examples of companies who are actually supporting, as Prashant said, a lot of social enterprises, and there is a lot of scope even for further. And it could not be just, funding. It could be even technology support, even marketing, distribution. It could be anything. As long as the objective is getting fulfilled, why not? So what I feel is that if you have positive impact on your mind, then working out a way it is just a matter of time.
Sure. So Sona, from you, where there is a will, there is a way. So today we have
Absolutely.
found a way, despite the technical difficulties that were due to heavy rains in Mumbai, I learned, and due to the technical whatever disruptions that happened, we found a way to connect. And also, I think a big, the last message that I would like to kind of put in here is win-wins are not bad. Win-wins are a good way to move forward. And when I was writing the book, I think I've emphasized on that enough, that let's find opportunities to create win-wins. And while we are looking at opportunities, let's also look at, are there any other things that are missed? There are 100, let's start with one. Let's start with one that helps the business. Like Dr. Upadhyay said, there is one stream which is helping the business, so fine, it's a win-win. So I think we'll have to create more spaces. And I'm so glad to be given this platform through IICSR, to be able to become a catalyst, to share my experiences and insights, and to get diverse expertise in one room, in one frame. And hope, I sincerely hope this is just a start, and more to come in the coming up sessions. So thank you so much, and over to IICSR for sign up. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
very
for
much, and we
being
wish
here.
you all the best for your course also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we can take
So we are
a
signing
group
off now.
picture.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
How do we take a group picture? Screenshot?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me fix my hair. Let me fix my hair.
What would I do?
Sorry.
You and me can't do anything.
Or should I say you have one less problem?
Done.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
I really enjoyed the discussions. I hope everybody else who's heard enjoyed it too. And there's more to come. So bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you for being there.
Ma'am, thank you, sir.